Okay, wonderful. Well, welcome everybody to the Museum of the Rockies. We are coming at you live from the galleries here in our LUSTER exhibit. We have had just such a wonderful run of this show with people of all ages and all backgrounds really getting something out of it, whether you're an art fan or a Motorhead or both. You can really find something to love here. So if you haven't gotten a chance to see LUSTER yet, it's up until the first week of May. So if you can come to the Museum of the Rockies, if you're local or if you're visiting, please do plan on stopping by. You won't be disappointed. So I'm so excited to welcome two of our artists from the LUSTER show today and our wonderful MC, Jeffrey Conger. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Jeffrey and why he's qualified to lead this talk and not me, and then he'll introduce the two artists. So Jeffrey Conger is currently a professor of graphic design at Montana State University in Bozeman, where he works with their team of educators to deliver the state's only 4-year graphic design BFA degree. Through his creative work, Jeffrey is a professional photographer, designer, and author who specializes in motorsports. Known for his candid storytelling and photojournalistic style, he has documented the action at iconic races like the Indy 500, Bonneville Speed Week, and 24 Hours of Le Mans. Le Mans. I didn't practice saying that word. His magazine covers and feature articles have appeared across North America and Europe in major publications, including Hot Rod, Automobile, Rod and Custom, Hot Rod Deluxe, Classic Trucks, and Super Street Bike. Please welcome your host for this evening, Jeffrey Conger.
Thank you, Chelsea. It's great to see you all. It's great to see our artists. We've got already some people joining in. And if those of you that are joining us will just type in the chat where you're joining us in from, that would be awesome. What town, what state you're in. Chelsea is our amazing director of education and public programming here at the Museum of the Rockies. And we're so glad to have her in this capacity and bringing all of this amazing work to the public. Some other thank yous before we get started. A thank you to the Museum of the Rockies. A thank you to the volunteers, the staff, the administration here. And I especially want to thank the security guards. They were helping me out get in earlier. So thank you. Also a thank you to my very own College of Arts and Architecture here at MSU, the School of Art, and also Melissa Reagan for connecting us and this show, as well as a shout out to Mark Browning, who was the former director of the Waterworks Art Museum in Miles City. And he brought motorsports art for the very first time to a gallery decades ago and paved the way for this show to be here in Bozeman. It's a delight that we have 2 of our 14 artists here live with us on Zoom. And I will introduce Marc Jones and A.D. Cook. First and foremost, Marc is zooming in from Loveland, Colorado. So thank you, Marc. And I just want to say Marc moved to Colorado in the 70s. And this is the crazy thing I love about it is one of his jobs was at the high altitude lab at Echo Lake, which is, for those of you that know Colorado, it was at 10,700 feet. And he was the field station manager there. But it also allowed him time after his day was over to maybe do some painting and maybe some wildlife. And only recently did he kind of go back to another passion, which was motorsports. And you're going to see some of his astounding work, Porsche 917, which is one of my favorite, a Jaguar, and Austin Healey 3000. So thanks for zooming in, Marc, and we'll talk here in a minute. Then we also have with us tonight A.D. Cook. And forever an artist is his motto, and rings true. Not only if we go back and pull up his resume, you'll see some amazing things like he was creating large scale murals for the Hollywood video stores in Portland, right? Giant things, learning on the street. Also, he ran a design firm in Portland's amazing Pearl District. And as a contributor to many publications, I also love this list of his contributions to Airbrush Magazine, Easy Riders, Las Vegas Weekly, Quick Throttle, Unlimited Airbrush, and many more. Way too long. We'd use up the whole hour if we read the whole list. So, and he's joining us from Las Vegas. So thank you, AD.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
I know that there's 14 total artists in this exhibition, and we'll do a little walk around and introduce you to some of their work. But what we wanted to do today, this evening, was really kind of walk through and get a behind the scenes look at what inspires these amazing artists, and possibly what is it that turns their crank, pun intended. So I'm going to start with you, Marc. What is it in your painting, or what inspires you?
Well, I grew up in a motorsports family, and we were always sitting by the TV with my dad, watching races. If it wasn't that, then we were helping him in the garage on cars. So we grew up doing it, and that rather went into my life growing up. And I got my first motorcycle when I was 15, and that just started the ball rolling. And then I got into cars and restoring them, and then eventually went to Syracuse University, got out of that, and then I started really exploring cars and restoring them for several years.
What about you, AD? How did you get involved in art making, and how did it become where it is for you today?
Well, I say always an artist because I remember being that kid in first grade who was, winning the art contests and designing the school plays and floats and just whatever, the cheerleaders needed a banner. I made it murals in schools, and I went to 24 schools before I was in high school. So I was always the new kid, and art was just the easiest way to make friends and just sort of connect with people. And so that's kind of how it started for me.
When you think back, let me just rephrase that. So would you consider yourself label? I'm going to label you. So are you an illustrator? Are you a painter? Are you an artist? Are you I don't know. How would you label yourself, each of you?
I'm not really big on labels because I kind of feel like I'm all of those and none of those. I just consider myself a creator. I'm a content creator. I create whatever in whatever medium needs to be utilized to do whatever. And sometimes it's ink and an airbrush, and sometimes it's ones and zeros on the website, so.
What about you, Marc? If you were to make a business card, what would your label be?
Probably builder. Probably builder, because that's the way I look at the art. Not only for cars, but about all of my art. I'm building an image for somebody else to appreciate, for them to look at, and then get something that I put in out of it.
Very good. Let's go back to kind of, there's a thousand ways to become a full-time artist, whether it be formal education, whether it be just, self-taught. There seems to be equal success from both of these. What was the path for each of you?
Marc?
Okay, sure. I could go first. Well, on my path to actually being here, being in this glossary of wonderful art here, is basically after I got out of college, and I just started on my own and I was living in New York City at the time for a couple of years, and then came out to Colorado. But all the time, no matter what I did, I always had a painting going all the time. And I started with the University of Denver, and I always had paintings going with them. And in fact, some of my paintings are with the University of Denver right now. So that's another achievement. But then from there, I kept on going back to cars, obviously, and that led me to you. And I couldn't be happier with the progression.
That's awesome. AD, what about for you?
My path was maybe a little bit different. I didn't go to art school. I did some college, and I've taught at colleges since, but my process was more about, I think, befriending my heroes. If there was a custom painter, I got to know him and hung out in the studio, and I worked at print shops to learn graphic design, and whatever skill I wanted to pick up, I worked at a couple mural shops when I was young, and so I just picked up a lot of different skills that way. Worked in a framing shop and selling airbrushes in an art supply store. Just sort of covered the gamut, I guess, and it's just a bundle of experiences, really.
I'm looking behind both of you, and we'll talk more about your artwork later in the Zoomcast, but I'm looking behind you, Marc, and I'm seeing this amazing Corvette, and I'm looking behind you, AD, seeing this amazing bike. Can you just tell us a little bit about these pieces that are kind of literally lurking over your shoulder?
Sure, I'll start, Marc, if you'd like, or
Go ahead.
Indian Summer behind me is one of the featured paintings in the LUSTER exhibit. It's owned by my collector in Indianapolis, who I'm so gracious has loaned it to us, along with the other paintings, which were borrowed for the show. But Indian Summer started, I did it in 2000. Airbrush Action magazine asked if I might create an article on how to create the illusion of chrome. And so I read it, I painted it just to tell how to do it. And there's the article on my website. But I love that motorcycle, and I borrowed it for a day and did a photo shoot and spent about a month on the painting. So it was started with a purpose, and it's been everywhere since, except for in the collector's home recently.
So I'm curious, how did the bike ride?
I liked it. It rode like a Softail. If you're a motorcycle guy, it's like a Harley Softail. So I would say back in the day, I eventually moved into a Road King, but I compared it to a Heritage I had. I would have done Indian had they stayed around for a while, but they went bankrupt just days after they gave me a contract to be their authorized artist. They had to know that was coming. I don't know.
Well, that's a great story. What about you, Marc? What's the Corvette behind you? Tell us a little bit about that piece.
Sure, it's a 63, the first year of the Stingray, and this is a convertible with fuel injection, and this car actually found me. I was actually out in my backyard making dinner on the grill, and I didn't see the car actually come there, but I just saw from about 100 feet away this big shiny object, and I said, oh, I have to go down there and check that out. I don't know what it is, but it's going to be amazing. And it was this Corvette, and it was broken down, and the tires were good. There was no fluids under it. It was immaculate beyond belief. And I just said, oh boy, this has to be my next painting. And so I started being taken away with a tow truck, and a little later, but didn't have a chance to talk to the owner, and I wish that I had that. But I do have the painting of it, so that's even better.
Now I'm curious, did you as artists know each other before this show started, or did you know any of the artists?
I knew one of the artists, and he actually got me involved in this, and that was Harold Zabady.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at one of my paintings back there, which is of the car wash, that's actually his grandson.
Oh,
and he actually posted a picture of that on Facebook, and I asked him if I could borrow that, and he said sure. And that was one of the things that got me into LUSTER. So, and I got another friend out of it.
That's awesome. What about you, AD? Did you know any of the artists before the show began?
Only a couple, you know, through pieces that I'd recognized, and but not personally. I think it was an awesome experience when the show kicked off in Daytona Beach to actually meet and connect faces and meet Mark and a few of the others. That was a nice gathering.
So now, AD, I'm curious now, because this show has, what, 14 stops, I think, over 5 years, something like that. And I'm just curious, what did you say to your collector when you told them that their piece was going on the road for 5 years? I want to know the way, how you convinced them of that, or did you just maybe just say it's going for a week or two?
Well, it's actually 3 different collectors. So there were 4, but one decided she didn't want to loan her painting out. We didn't know it was going to be this long a show when it first started. It was going to be a couple of years or something. And it's really grown. To David's credit, the show has hit some fabulous locations. But so far, no one's, a couple have hinted but that they'd like their paintings back. But so far, they've been gracious to let me hang on to them for a little while longer. So thank you, collectors, if you're listening, for that.
Right, and you mentioned David Wagner, the curator of this show, and just the kind of the mastermind behind this. And we'll talk a little bit about, you know, bringing it all together and that vision. So, but a big shout out to him and his vision and the promotion and bringing this to so many different people.
And his tenacity, for sure.
What's that?
His tenacity. He called me the first time and I thought he was a crank call, you know. And the second time I kind of blew him off, and the third time I thought, well, maybe I'll Google him and see if
Yeah,
he's real, you know.
yeah, your warranty is up, right?
Exactly, right. Depending on my wall is about to expire.
Right. So we've got just a little quick video clip of the entire show that I'd like to just walk around with. We got the technology. We'll share screen here. You'll need to enable this so that I can share screen. But we'll do that in a second. I'm going to ask you a couple other questions. Obviously, with the pandemic, things closing, things opening, how have you seen that affect the artist scene, whether that be galleries or museums or your own commissions, or how has it impacted? It's impacted every single corner of the universe, so it has to have impacted the art scene as well.
Yeah, very much so. Several shows and a couple of galleries that I was working with are no longer around, you know, and so that obviously set a lot of things back. You know, getting art, shipping went up, what, 500% during COVID. So just sending art was, you know, almost unfeasible anymore, anywhere. So it's just now starting to come back for us for personal things. I dug deeper into the internet world, you know, further building websites and working on my online presence, I guess.
What about for you, Mark?
Well, you know, it was a global shakeup of the art scene, and it touched literally everywhere. And I found myself, well, as things are starting to come back, trying to get in and doing some smaller things as well as larger things. I mean, back in the day, it used to be just everything was as big as can be. But, you know, just, you know, trying to wean back into a new market, I found it easier with some smaller pieces as well.
So adjusting scale.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
I like that.
We're gonna see if we can do this real quickly.
Is that your island, Jeffrey?
That is, it's
Very nice.
the Isle of Jeff, right? So we're gonna see if we can make technology work. Does everybody see that? We'll do a little walk around.
Beautiful.
We'll do the interior, and then at the end of the show, we'll do the exterior. But if you guys see something, we're gonna do a quick little pass by your work, but also too, we'll come back and pull up some details of your work. But I know that Chris Preslin, this watercolor is right there as we walk in and come around the alcove to Harold. Some of Harold's amazing Ford GT, a couple Type E's. This Type E engine is one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Testarossa, And then we move over here to AD's work, I think Dream 103, and we'll talk a lot about that here in a minute. Indian Spring, Indian Summer.
Indian
Yeah,
Summer, correct.
Indian Summer. I was just, and then I love this one. And then we move on to Cheryl Kelly, this nice 65 Corvette, some oils, NASCAR piece by Cheryl. And then Guinevere, this is a nice Ducati piece. And then come back and look at Chris's. I think these are some Richard Lewis watercolor here. Some more of Guinevere, some oils that she's done, another watercolor. And then we've got some down here. There's some of yours, Mark, and then John's. And then we'll kind of come back here to some of your acrylics, and we'll go in depth on some of those. This is, I think, the piece that you were talking about, washing the XKE.
Exactly.
Right, and a wonderful portion. So that's just the 2-minute quick tour, and I'm just gonna hit escape on that, and we'll pull up a couple slides, and we'll have a little longer discussion about some of this work.
Would it be okay if I could, on behalf of all the LUSTER artists, can I speak about the passing of Chris Kreslin?
Absolutely. What I'd like to do, here's a list of all of the artists. This would be just perfect.
Right. I would like to convey our condolences to the family of Chris Kreslin, including her husband Bruce, who attended LUSTER when it premiered at Daytona Beach and joined her at different venues during the tour. Chris was an extraordinary artist. She used watercolors as a medium, and she told me once that she painted the cars that she can never afford. Chris was also a champion for all animals, great and small, and painted them as well. And we will never forget you, Chris.
Thank you. That's just a wonderful tribute, and I know it's very, very important. Just the work here is stunning, and it just speaks for itself. So thank you, Mark, for that wonderful tribute.
Absolutely.
I want to take a little bit of time and pull up each of your work and maybe have you talk a little bit about process, maybe get down in the weeds about composition and some of the other things that all things creative. But why don't we start with you, AD, and just talk about this piece, what inspired it and your process. It's a huge piece. On screen, it doesn't have that magnitude it has here in the gallery, but it's quite large.
Yeah, it's 20 square feet, so 4 feet by 5 feet.
Mhm.
I have a collector in Washington, Tacoma. He actually owns the big Harley dealership in Tacoma. And he has a few of my pieces. He also had a couple of my figurative pieces. And he had one of these motorcycles, Captain America motorcycle. There was like a limited edition series, and he had one of those. And he'd had it on his showroom for a while, and he decided he wanted to use the showroom space for something else, but he wanted to still experience the motorcycle. So he commissioned me to do this painting. I flew up to Washington, and I took the bike out for an afternoon with a camera and went all over. And this is on a pier that I thoroughly enjoyed right in Tacoma, Washington, right on the bay there. And so I hung out with the motorcycle and got to listen to it, had a burger and a beer, and just listened to people talk about it and sort of connected with it. And must have shot 300 or 400 photos of it over the course of about a day or two. And then came back and narrowed it down to about 50 that I liked. And this one won out, and I just had a blast painting it. Because like you say, it's scale. I don't think people realize just like the tank is so huge. And the tank was the hardest part of the whole painting, quite honestly. Everything else was a breeze. The tank, I think I had to paint like 3 times just to get it to have a sense of weight and roundness about it, mostly because it's white, and so it's kind of hard to do. And then I always like hiding little things in the painting. So on the top of the air breather next to the carburetor over on the right side, I embossed my name, my signature. There you go. Yeah, thank you. And that's pretty much it. So the collector barely had the painting. And then I got the call from David and I'm like, hey, that painting I delivered last month, can I borrow that for a while? So thank you, Ed, for 4 years later.
Very good. I'm always curious about the process, and I know a lot of people paint from found photographs or photographs that are historic or given to them, but it sounds like you go out and create your own images and then paint from them.
Yeah, mostly because I'm painting realistic, I need photo reference, but I really want my piece to be my piece from, from beginning to a finished piece. So I do everything on them, prep the canvas, do the painting, clear it, everything I can anyway. Just weird that way, but
No, but by shooting your own images, you have control over that composition and the viewpoint and where you're looking, in addition to the whole depth and richness of the canvas. And can you talk a little bit about your materials? What is this painted on, and what materials are you using?
This is painted on a gallery wrapped canvas, so the 1 3/4 inch deep stretcher bars. I have a process that I've been doing for years where I take gesso and a squeegee and I apply multiple coats over many days and I wet sand it. So it's almost like a slate. I call it a slate smooth canvas that I created just for airbrushing. And then that's why you don't see any canvas texture on the front of it. It almost looks like I painted paper and glued it to the front, but it's canvas. And then it's airbrushed with an acrylic variation of airbrush paints and larger paints for big spray guns for bigger areas. They're still small in the airbrush automotive world, but different size airbrushes for different levels of detail, I guess. And there's a lot of paintbrush in here as well. It isn't all airbrush, actually, probably less airbrush than you would think in looking at it, but I kind of mix the two back and forth, airbrush and paintbrush. And
will you talk just a little bit? I'm always curious about the background, and you say it was a boardwalk. What?
Yeah, planks on a pier.
Right.
So, and then there were cool little shops set up there, but literally this bike is parked 1.5 feet from the edge of a pier, basically.
Very good. Well, it's just a stunning piece, and I can attest to the fact that it has a great impact in person.
Oh, thank you very much. It was a blast to paint.
Oop. So, Mark, can you talk about this piece?
Certainly, the car wash, like I said, this is taken after a photo I saw online from Harold Zabady and his grandson washing his E-Type Jaguar XKE. And what really got to me about this was that it's really like a passing of, moving up from being a child to a teenager when you get to, wash and work on the family car. So I just had to do it once I saw the photograph. And I must say that I changed a few things about it. I made it a lot more intense in the red spectrum, and added some more color here and there, because actually the original photograph that I saw was a little washed out in color, which actually gave me a great palette on which to get to actually create on that. So that's what I did there. And this is on a 24 by 36 stretched canvas.
And then is this acrylic, as I recall?
Right, this is acrylic, and I use, well, probably for this red, probably like 20 or 30 layers of red going on, and then using my hair dryer, to speed up the process, which is very helpful sometimes. And so that's how you can get such depth of color, and especially in the blue coming off of the reflection of the water in the back. I just love how that all plays together.
I'm just curious, how many hair dryers have you burned up using this process?
About 4 already.
So do you wait for them to go on special and then
Yes.
Yeah. We used to have a friend that went through a lot of coffee, and he would wait for the coffee machines to go on special and go down and buy 6 or 7 at a time. So I'm curious, just compositionally, I want to know what that car is in the garage. Is it a mystery? Do you have a car under there in mind, or
It is a Triumph TR6, I believe. Yeah,
and you know that, right? So that detail
Yes.
is there.
yes, definitely.
Obviously, for both of you, and I'm curious not only about the subject matter, but also the background and the mastery that's required to move through that. And so when I look at this grass, right, these little blades of grass, and I look at the spokes on the XKE, I mean, what advice do you have for someone out there? It's like, how do you paint grass, right? How do you paint knockoff wheel spokes? I mean, is there a class? Is there a master class on YouTube for that, or what?
There is not that I know of. I just have to keep on, sometimes with the front wheel there, it took me about 4 times to get it correctly. So it's just, yes, the front one, because that had the most reflection in it. And even though that seems like that could be easy, it wasn't.
So when you say it took 4 times, did you paint it 4 times on this canvas?
Yes.
Uh-huh. And then walk us through this process of red application, and pretend like I don't paint. And what do you start with? The white? Do you start with the dark? Do you start with the black? Do you start with the chrome? Where do you start?
Well, I start with the lighter and then I go darker.
Mhm.
And of course, the lighter is less coats. And so you have a little bit of the canvas showing through on the color spectrum of that. And then as we get into the darker and darker, that's the coats that take multiple coats of paint on and on and on and on and on and on. And then of course, for other parts of it, you mix in different colors to get the effect of like on the roof, the sun coming through the trees. And so this one was it was a great one to do, and I just am just super pleased with the way it came out.
When you look at this, when it's all done, is there a place that you point to that you're really proud of? You're like, I got it. It's done, right there.
The water coming off the back window.
Very nice. So coming in this here and
Yeah.
down to the ground. I love this shadow down here. The wet shadow.
Yes,
Yeah.
that one, yes, and the dark blue next to it, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. This is, I think, some of my favorite areas in the piece. Let's look at another one of AD's here. This is the one that you started to talk about here, but we can see it in its full entirety. Obviously, is it realism? Is it hyperrealism? Is it medium realism? Where is it on the spectrum?
Well, I don't know that it's hyper realism, because pure someone who want to really pick it apart might go, that nut and bolt aren't exactly right or whatever. But I think it's illusionary realism. It's convincing without, I could spend a year on painting like this. There's a part where you got to say, what part am I going to be happy with, and how far do you take it and whatnot. So there's a lot of realism in it, but there's also a lot of just real simple stuff, like the water in the background is just real soft airbrush streaks. It's kind of vague and nebulous. I wanted it to be out of focus, and mostly just make sure that the colors complemented the reds in the piece. And there's other areas like the top of the dash, where maybe a lot of time is put into putting the little embossed Indian word and the lights and stuff. So I think, when you're dealing with realism and you're looking at things that are crisp and in focus and close, and things that are pushed back that are a little out of focus, you have a lot of leeway to sort of bend the story and direct the eye a little bit.
Walking around the show this afternoon, every single artist in this exhibition handles reflection in a different way. It's really interesting to see. And they also, that little godlight sparkle, every single artist handles it in a different way. And can you talk just a little bit, what are some of your magic tricks to to working through chrome reflection or that little sun ray, or what are some of your secrets?
Well, one of the things, and I actually have an article on my website, it's a 2-part article on how to do this exact painting. So it kind of covers some of that. But I think one of the things when painting chrome is a lot of times artists forget that there's actually a little bit of brown in chrome because there's dirt in the sky, you know. And so a little thing like kicking it with just a little bit, so it's not perfect blue, but it's a little dirty blue. And then with an airbrush, what's nice is where you see those little crisps of glows, you know, I can hit them with a red and then do a blue on, or do a white on top of them. So they have that little halo, you know, or something. You don't normally get the, you know, the starburst like on that one round headlight in the, on the left side of the helmet. You'll see kind of like some prisms shooting out of all different directions. I try not to overdo that. Like once or twice in a painting is a lot. And that's really only produced because the camera lens. In real life, you would never, your eye wouldn't see that, just a camera lens would. So so just, you know, that an airbrush is really great for doing those little glowy bursts, you know. It's like the perfect tool for
You mentioned riding this bike, and obviously the swing weight on this bike is completely different than others. And it just the girth of it and the stance and all of that. Does that translate into the painting, or how does that translate into the painting?
Well, I hope that it has the feeling, has the big beach bars on it. I want it to feel big and heavy and you know, because it is a big bike, you know, it's a cruiser. And so I think, you know, my goal with this painting is I wanted you to feel like you could walk up to it and throw a leg over it and climb right on it, you know, both in imagery and its scale, because it's about actual size, you know, in the painting and stuff. So the piece behind me is kind of exaggerated size wise, but the painting itself, it's that was the intent of it. And so you just felt like you could walk up to it. I wanted it to be approachable, I guess, you know.
That's awesome. Is there anything hidden in this one? Can we look for something?
You know, there's just not as much hidden as it was about technique. I had 1 month to paint it and it took me 149 hours.
Oh my gosh.
It was on top of my full-time job. So it was a long month and writing an article. So like I said, I could have spent a year, but the magazine actually gave me a deadline, you know.
Yeah, no time to hide treasures in this one.
Not as much, I wish. You know.
Yeah, very good. This is one of my favorite pieces in the show, Mark. Obviously, having been to Le Mans and growing up with Steve McQueen's epic movie, can you talk a little bit about how this piece came about?
Certainly. Well, like you, I was a Le Mans fan, and my brothers and I grew up with my father watching it and then going to bed and then getting up early in the morning to see the finish of it. So yeah, we've been lifelong fans of this race, and this is just my my homage to that, and of course Steve McQueen. And this is actually the car that he drove in Le Mans, and it's now owned by Jerry Seinfeld. Yes, so
I built a model of that car when I was a kid.
I think all of us had it.
I did too. Yes.
No, the Gulf colors are just iconic. And I mean, obviously you could have chosen a lot of different, I don't know, compositions or positions, or tell us a little bit about how we got this image and why this image became a painting.
Certainly. Well, one thing, of course, Le Mans is in France. So I wanted to put this somewhere in the south of France. And so that's about what I did. And it's in somebody's big estate somewhere that has trillions of dollars. He could just hang out with this car and, you know, outside, and he doesn't even need a garage for it. He's that rich.
There you go. Well, it has that south of France feel, and it's magical. You know, the pageantry and the scale of Le Mans is like none other. It's you know, I describe it as like going to a Super Bowl and a Dead show and the Indy 500 all in one. And it's just amazing. I mean, it's a town of, 10 or 20 or 30,000 people during the regular off season. And then it grows to 500,000 people for race week. And people are camping in the fields, and, every single house becomes a Airbnb, and
Right.
there's actual showers in the middle of the farmers' fields, permanent showers they're there so that people can camp year after year after year. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Let's take another look at, this was obviously a crowd pleaser and has some hidden meaning, but why don't we talk about the piece itself and then what's hidden inside, AD?
Well, this piece was just sort of a happy experience, I guess. I was talking to a friend, Michael Lickner, who does who coordinates the shows in Sturgis at the Buffalo Chip, and he was putting together a show called Skin and Bones. And so we were chatting, and he said, "I put one of your pieces in the show. Do you have anything that has body painting or tattoos rather, and motorcycles?" And I didn't. I had either or. I'd had, but I didn't have anything that had both. And so I had a whole different thing in mind. And the person who was supposed to model for me, he kind of fell through. And the next day I was like, man, I need something. And I went to the Harley dealership with my camera, and it was a 4th of July weekend, and they were doing a bikini bike wash. And I'm like, thank you. And so I found the girl tattooing. Obviously she had tattoos, but the girl washing the bike had tattoos who's reflected in there. And I asked her if she wanted to model, and she graciously did. And I did some shots, and I went right to work for it. Because this painting also, I had about a month to deliver to Sturgis. And but its story, Dream 103, comes from the tattoo on her arm. It's Dream, which she didn't have. I added. The rest of the tattoos on her are legit, and the motorcycle was a 103, so it's titled Dream 103 because of that. And then the hidden part is throughout the painting, they're everywhere. There's 103 little skulls. The biggest one is right below the one and to the center. There you go. And then on that shelf and scattered throughout those bubbles and all that. And then I hid my name quite, somewhat in the bubbles. And so that's Dream 103's thing. And I unveiled her at Skin and Bones at Sturgis, and it was an awesome experience. And then David called, and I'm like, I think I got a third painting for you.
That's awesome.
So,
Well, when we tell that story, we have 10 or 12 people sitting around this painting, looking and pointing and counting and, trying not to touch the painting. And, but it's awesome for engagement.
it was such a blast to paint, and it's painted the same way on canvas with my canvas prep. And so again, it looks smooth, but it's a canvas piece. It looks like illustration board, but it's canvas.
We have a couple more that we want to look at. And this one is this Austin Healey 3000, Mark. Can you tell us a little bit about this piece?
Certainly. This goes back to cars, obviously. And I was at a car show, and actually I had an entry into this car show. I had my Porsche 944 Turbo was entered, and it got best in its class. But I was also looking around, and I found this beautiful Austin Healey, and I just took like a million pictures of it. The bad thing was, the Austin Healey that I took was beige, and it just didn't do anything. So after I saw all the pictures, and decided, okay, I could still do the Healey. I would like to just, bring it all down just on the grill and a little bit on the sides. But I need to get an Austin Healey color. So I had to look up the color, and the color was teal. So I went with that, and that was a lot better than the beige.
Yeah, it's such a great color. And then once again, your point of view is I really love how it's kind of angled down, and the actual painting is cropped more symmetrically than what we're showing here.
Right.
But can you talk about that positioning or that point of view?
Oh, absolutely. Because I've always thought of this car when, being a child. And my uncle had one of these cars, and he used to take us around. And I always remember just sitting down on the grass and looking at that grill. And that's what I wanted to get that perspective from. Just sitting on the ground and looking at that grill.
All right. Well, Mark, I think the next slide is going to be a surprise for you, but what we're kind of into the fourth quarter here. If anybody has a question for one of our artists, please go ahead and type that in the chat, and we will get to that here in a second. But this is your space, right? So
That's the studio.
That's your studio, and so talk a little bit about the artist process. How do you make time? How do you find space? How do you decide? How do you flip that switch that I'm going to paint today? Or do you have a schedule? Or, do you have an alarm that goes off and it's like paint a XKE today or what?
Well, up until 6 years ago, I was a regular working person, and I had my own construction company for like 25 years. So that kept me very busy. But like I said, I always had a painting on the side that I was doing. But finally, 6 years ago, I got to retire, and now I do this full time, which means that I'm in the studio probably at least 5 to 7 hours every day, working on something. And this one in particular was a car that I saw at another auto show, the Concours de Elegance in Colorado, and I was just amazed with all of the different colors of red on this one Jaguar, and I just had to do my best to bring out all the variety and the nuances of that. And this is called Rear Window.
That's awesome. And then expensive brushes, cheap brushes, borrowed brushes, or do you just go over and steal them from friends?
You're the
My
guy.
brushes are not really expensive, but they've been with me for a long time. I don't really go out and buy much. I buy more paint than anything else and more canvases, but most of the brushes have been with me for 10 or 20 years.
So what's the tool you couldn't live without, that you couldn't create without? Is it what's the one thing that you have to have?
Great lighting.
Great lighting. That's awesome.
Yes.
What about?
And I mean, if you don't have that, then you won't know if you're getting what you really want.
Right.
And so that's like the biggest thing is that I have so many lights in there that I could do so many different things with them and get so many different shadows or different color schemes. It's just wonderful.
What about for you, AD? What's the one creative tool? What's the one thing in your studio that you couldn't be without?
Well, if all else fails, a pencil and paper will get you through the day. But I love my airbrushes, but you gotta have pencils.
Yeah. Did you sketch? Did you ruin a lot of textbooks? I'm just curious as a teacher where.
Yeah, still I doodle and draw and carry a notepad with me almost everywhere I go, whether it's for notes or just to jot down an idea, or if I'm having lunch, I might draw the salt shaker on the table. It doesn't really matter, but I try to at least keep ideas moving and keeping things happening in that regard.
There's a couple questions in the chat that I'd like to pose for both of you, so just chime in. And the first one says, obviously, realism came before photography, right? Or, realism in painting.
Sure.
Can you talk about how the desire to create a realistic image with paint and brush while photography exists keeps the painting profession current, even though it's been around for centuries? Or maybe we could even just reproduce it with a picture. I mean, I'll let you guys answer that.
Well, for me, the photography is just a place to start. It's reference. I'm not looking to copy a photograph. I'm hoping to bring some sort of creative element into it that the photograph doesn't have. And even taking the photo is an art form. They used other tools back in the Renaissance and prior to cameras and photography and other tools. It's just a tool. The camera's just a tool, just like anything else. And if it makes your project easier, better, more fulfilling, then use it.
Yeah, and I would totally agree with the AD on that one about the camera. It is just that. It's a tool. It's a starting point. And sometimes you even start without the camera and then bring it in. It depends on the piece and what you're trying to do with it. So I just look at it the same way that you do. It's a piece of well, it's a camera.
Yeah, and I think with the camera, when you're taking a photo of whatever it is, a car, motorcycle, a human being, whatever, there's sort of a disconnect because you're a little bit, you're removed, you know, the camera isn't touching them. But then when you're at the easel and you're connecting with it on a whole different level, that to me, it's kind of completes that circle. You know, you sketch it, you photograph it, you paint it, and you take a picture of it when it's done. You know, it's just tools, basically. But
There's another, that's great. There's another question I want to touch on, and obviously kind of comes back to subject and object. And it says, is what makes a beautiful painting the same thing that makes a beautiful car?
well, I would say that they both are related in many ways. I think with a beautiful car, just like with music instruments and stuff, they're inspired by beautiful feminine lines, just like, you know, musical instruments and pottery and, you know, many other great artworks. So in that sense, I think they're super connected. They all kind of come from the same source, you know, origin of inspiration, whatever that might be. That's just my take, you know.
What's your thoughts on that, Mark?
Right, Mark? Mark's being quiet over there.
Well, I'm trying to think about what I'm going to say. Well, you know, the whole painting thing is trying to find something out of nothing. And there's 100 ways of doing that. And from using cameras, from sketching, from using your own memory, there's just a litany of ways to come up with that image. So, but as far as the car itself, I would say that I've seen my share of great cars and great paintings. And I think the great paintings of great cars are the best.
I couldn't say it any better. I know we're headed towards the top of the hour, and I just want to thank our host, the Museum of the Rockies here. I want to throw up this, I think we've got, let's see, this is the schedule. If you haven't been into the Museum of the Rockies, this show is up through May 1st. It's absolutely breathtaking. We heard from 2 of the artists tonight, and there's a whole litany of others. After it leaves Bozeman, it heads to Auburn, Indiana, to the Auburn Cord Duesenberg Automobile Museum, and then on to Texas, and then on to Michigan. It's just been an amazing show. And I want to thank our curator. I want to thank Chelsea Hogan. She's going to come on here and wrap us up. I'm going to stop the screen share and move back. But Chelsea, you want to take us out?
Well, thank you so much, Jeffrey. Thank you, Mark and AD. Thank you, David Wagner, for putting together such an incredible show. Please do come and see LUSTER before it closes on May 1st. And keep an eye on museumoftherockies.org for more programs, events, and exhibits. Have a wonderful night, everybody. Thank you so much.